tonight, while Israel wages war against Hamas in the Middle East.
There are allegations that a Jewish student was assaulted. We are investigating.
Lawmakers question college heads about the fallout on campuses here at home. And as the Senate debates border security,
lately what they've been stealing, and which has more value, is humans.
Meet one Arizona sheriff fighting against human trafficking. Plus, summer travel season kicks off. How to stay safe on those sunny days spent outside. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation.
Israel expands its invasion of Rafah despite international pressure. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup.
That's right. From the CBN studio in Washington, I'm Tara Mergener. Israel is pushing closer to the heart of Rafah as troops hunt down Hamas above and below ground.
The IDF says it has destroyed several tunnels and is in close combat with the terrorists. The military believes Hamas is hiding hostages somewhere inside Rafah city. Israeli leaders are under renewed pressure to secure their freedom after newly released video shows terrorists with the 5 female Israeli soldiers who were kidnapped back on October 7th.
This operation will increase. More forces from the ground, more forces from the air, maneuver, and we will reach our goals to hit Hamas very hard to deprive its military capabilities.
The United Nations estimates 900,000 Palestinians have fled the fighting. Meanwhile, in the area, Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi was buried today, 4 days after he died in a helicopter crash. Thousands packed the streets for his funeral. Raisi was widely seen as a candidate to succeed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei.
While tensions in the Middle East continue, so are concerns over anti-Semitism at U.S. universities. On Capitol Hill today, school leaders facing questions from House lawmakers on the issue.
Collegiate leaders highlighted the challenge between balancing free speech and keeping students safe. CBN's Wendy Griffith reports.
The hearing calling for accountability and stopping anti-Semitic college chaos included several university presidents who dealt with violent protests, including UCLA Chancellor Gene Block from the University of California.
I'm fully aware that many of our Jewish students have had to confront rhetoric and images on campus that any reasonable person would find repugnant. Trust me, I understand their pain. I've lived it myself. As a Jewish kid growing up in the Catskill region of New York with relatives who were Holocaust survivors.
On April 25th, anti-Israel protests sprang up on the UCLA campus, resulting in an encampment that grew to more than 500 people. Block admits it took too long to address the violence.
But when more than 200 protesters refused police orders, law enforcement removed the encampment that night. With the benefit of hindsight, we should have been prepared to immediately remove the encampment if and when the safety of our community was put at risk. We have since taken decisive action. I created a new Office of Campus Safety that reports directly to me.
Northwestern University President Michael Schill answered questions about anti-Semitism among his faculty.
Question: why did you believe it was appropriate to appoint faculty members who have defended and made excuses for anti-Semitism?
I will be appointing to the task force that we are going to create faculty, staff, administrators who I believe are committed to fighting anti-Semitism.
President Schill, one of the advisory committee members, Jessica Weniger, has been a leader of academic boycott efforts against Israel, and she signed a petition defending a Palestinian terrorist who murdered 2 Israeli college students in a bombing. Do you acknowledge Professor Weniger as grossly unfit for a committee meant to combat anti-Semitism?
I do not believe in the BDS movement. I am in print against it at my previous university, and I will not be discussing individual faculty members or their writing.
Wendy Griffith, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Wendy. Since December, the House Education Committee investigations have cost the presidents of Harvard and UPenn their jobs.
The Senate has failed again to pass a bipartisan border security bill, both parties announcing they reached a compromise on immigration in February after months of negotiations. But GOP lawmakers ultimately blocked the measure after Trump said he opposed it. Chuck Schumer blasted Republicans after today's second failed vote.
So today was an opportunity for Republicans to listen to the millions of Americans across the country that support this bill and the thousands of Border Patrol officers on the front lines of the border that endorsed the bill. The contrast between Democrats and Republicans is clear today and will be even clearer in November.
Immigration is top of voters' minds, and polls show Americans are not happy with how Biden has handled the border. Republicans dismissed the vote as political theater.
Well, while Congress failed to advance border security, one Arizona sheriff is setting his sights on Washington in an effort to help clean up the border.
He wants to stop out drug cartels and human smugglers. CBN's Chuck Holton shows us how he's trying to save his community from the dangers.
It might be 70 miles north of the Mexico-Arizona border, but Pinal County feels like the front lines in the fentanyl crisis. For years, cartels have used this route to smuggle illicit cargo north across the Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation. Since 2017, Sheriff Mark Lamb has worked to stop it.
So if you look out this way, that area down there is going to be the reservation. A few miles, I think it's 4 or 5 miles. The reservation starts, and then that reservation goes all the way into Mexico. It crosses over the border. So on both sides, you have Mexico and the United States, but the reservation is on both sides. And so they'll push through the reservation. And a lot of times, members of that reservation will drive them up to the county line and drop them off. And then what they do is they hike up to the I-8 or just on the other side to a place like where I'm going to show you now. And then they'll load out their vehicle and take off.
CBN rode along with Sheriff Lamb to see the scale of the problem.
So mind you, I could probably show you 100 of these spots. You can see all the residue from the people here. The water jugs, the clothes, the blankets. That orange twine is the remnants of a marijuana backpack. They use the burlap straps to make a backpack, and then they'll use the twine to tie these two packs together.
This vast desert poses a major challenge for Lamb and his deputies to police it all.
This is a unique area. We actually have RIP crews that will come in these areas, and the RIP crews are other drug dealers, other criminals that will come and steal the product from these loads, that whether it's marijuana, the fentanyl, the pills. But lately what they've been stealing, and which has more value, is humans. So if they're trafficking a load of 10 people that are trying to come to America, the RIP crews can come and steal them and then go up and extort them for money, put them into the sex trade, make them work for them, do all that.
The result is measured in human suffering.
These poor people, when we find them, they're darn near dead just from exhaustion from what the cartels put them through.
I want to show you something. We're just out here on the edge of the Indian Reservation, the Tohono O'odham Reservation that goes all the way down to the U.S.-Mexican border. And there are these piles of clothing everywhere around this area because this is a drop-off point. These are not migrants. These are not people who are coming across looking for asylum. The reason I say that is because we have these shoes made of carpet, which mask their footprints and the sound of their walking. We have camouflage jackets out here. We have camouflage hats. Now, these are uniforms. These are the same hats. Here's 3 of them. They've obviously been purchased at the same place. It's the same kind of camouflage. There are several of these camouflage backpacks also out here. This is what you would expect from a military invasion. When people are wearing uniforms that are standardized, these are obviously being funded by the cartels, and instead of carrying weapons, what they're carrying into America is poison.
We're the front line. And frankly, they're far more equipped. If they decided to actually come over with guns and all their equipment, how much military weaponry can you buy with $13 billion a year? They are amassing armies, well equipped, armies in Mexico that are going to be very difficult to deal with.
Lamb believes the problem is as much the fault of the U.S. government as it is of the cartels. That's why this sheriff has decided to run for U.S. Senate in 2024.
This fight, the only way to get rid of these people is to vote them out or to impeach them. And so there is hope. The hope is that every 2 years we have elections. And this next election is a crucial election. Because if you don't like this stuff, if you don't want these people flown into America, we got to get somebody back in there that believes in border security, that's actually going to do it and protect our communities and, frankly, protect these people that are being taken advantage of by the cartels.
From Southern Arizona, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
All right, thanks, Chuck. Well, hail, flooding, high winds and more tornadoes are expected tonight throughout the middle of the country. It's part of a system expected to plague the plains and spread east through the Memorial Day weekend. Meanwhile, heading into the official start of the U.S. summer, the United States could face one of the worst hurricane seasons in 2 decades. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, predicts as many as 25 total storms this year, the most forecast ever. A typical year averages about 14 tropical storms. 8 to 13 of those are projected to become hurricanes. Meteorologists say warm ocean waters are fueling the activity. The Atlantic hurricane season officially begins June 1st and runs through November 30th.
All right, up next, Nikki Haley bringing back Donald Trump's bid for the White House, or backing, I should say. The latest on the 2024 election in just 2 minutes. And welcome back. The U.S. and Kenya are celebrating 60 years of friendship today.
That's right. President Biden welcomed and rolled out the red carpet for President William Ruto, an official White House ceremony. It marks the first state visit to the United States by an African leader in more than 15 years. The president's agreed to foster new partnerships in health, security, the economy, and business.
The past is our proof that we are stronger and the world is safer when Kenya and the United States work together.
The visit comes as the United States works to counteract Russia and China's growing influence in Asia.
And now to the race for the White House. Former candidate Nikki Haley has announced she'll be voting for Donald Trump in November. Haley says her former GOP rival hasn't been perfect on policies like immigration and the economy, but she calls the Biden presidency a catastrophe.
I will be voting for Trump. Having said that, I stand by what I said in my suspension speech. Trump would be smart to reach out to the millions of people who voted for me and continue to support me.
And despite leaving the race more than 2 months ago, voters who aren't sold on Trump or Biden have continued supporting Haley in primary elections.
Nathan Gonzalez is editor and publisher of Inside Elections and a Faith Nation contributor. He joins us now. Welcome to you, Nathan. So what do you think motivated Haley to go public with this decision, and how much do you think it'll affect the anti-Trump vote Republicans have been registering by voting for her in these recent primaries?
Well, we have some surprises in politics, and this is not one of them. This is how this story almost always ends, with people, Republicans who criticize Trump or run against Trump. They always end up coming around and voting for him because ultimately they're Republicans, and so they find a way to justify their support for him. And usually it's because the alternative is worse, in this case, President Biden. I don't think it changes the dynamic of the race all that much. I expected the vast majority of Haley's voters, even those since she got out of the race, to ultimately support Trump because of that binary choice between Trump and Biden. I'm not exactly sure why she chose now to do it on timing, but it was inevitable that was going to happen, so she might as well have just get it out of the way and get on board, because that's where things were headed.
And Nathan, ironically or interestingly, Trump holds a rally in the Bronx tonight. Ronald Reagan was the last Republican to campaign there in 1980, winning the state but losing the New York borough. So what is Trump's end game? Does he actually have a shot at winning the Empire State?
No. But that's a very short answer. But this is a good way to talk about rallies. Are not a good way of analyzing who does or does not have support. I think Trump is making roads with Hispanic voters. I don't think this tells us anything because I had to go look it up, and I'm looking down here. 67,740 people voted for Trump in the Bronx in 2020. Now, that was only enough for 16% of the vote, but it's not a surprise that he can get a few thousand people to show up at a rally in New York City, whether it's the Bronx or he got hundreds of thousands of people in across New York City to vote for him in 2020. 3.2 million people voted for Trump statewide in New York, but that was only good for 38%. And so you just have to look at it in the broader context. He wants to show that there's momentum, that everyone's on the Trump train, and he has a lot of support, but rallies like this are just not the right way to analyze that support.
So, Nathan, we're a little over a month away from the first presidential debate set for June 27th. And a Quinnipiac poll shows more than 7 in 10 voters plan to watch. That same poll, though, also shows Biden and Trump running neck and neck, with Trump ahead on most of the major issues except for abortion and preserving democracy. Nathan, your thoughts in the last minute or so we have left.
Yeah, it's not a surprise that Trump is leading on the issues because, and that shows that he's leading in this race, and that is demonstrated on the ballot. This debate is going to be must-watch TV. Debates actually tend to not matter until they do, until one candidate has a specific slip-up moment, but there's going to be a lot of people watching to see if that happens.
All right, Nathan Gonzalez with Inside Elections. We always appreciate your political acumen. Thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. Good to see you.
Coming up, Memorial Day is almost here. How to stay safe on the beaches and at the barbecues this weekend. Welcome back. If you're hitting the road this holiday weekend, you're not alone. AAA reports 44 million Americans will hit the road this Memorial Day, making it the busiest travel weekend in nearly 20 years. The TSA is gearing up for around 18 million airline passengers, up more than 6% over last year. AAA expects a 4% rise in road traffic.
And if you are going to be heading outside for the holiday, do not forget the importance of protecting your skin. Doctors say you should wear sunscreen. That is no surprise, but some of the protective ingredients are a cause of concern for some consumers. Medical reporter Lori Johnson reports on how to stay safe in the sun.
Our skin can pay a hefty price for summer fun in the sun. Just one blistering sunburn in your younger years can increase the risk for deadly melanoma.
The UV exposure and ultraviolet exposure from the sun's rays is really the #1 most preventable and avoidable cause of not only skin cancer, but also signs of aging. So things like fine lines, wrinkles, brown spots, loss of elasticity.
Dermatologist Whitney Bowe says all of us should use sunscreen, but points out the FDA is questioning chemical sunscreens with ingredients like oxybenzone and avobenzone.
They're actually calling for sunscreen manufacturers to really take a closer look at the safety of some of those ingredients.
Studies show some sunscreen chemicals can be absorbed into the bloodstream. That's why the FDA states these products need to undergo further testing to help determine if they increase the risk for cancer, birth defects, or other adverse effects. And while those chemical sunscreens warrant further study, the FDA says mineral sunscreens are generally recognized as safe and effective. However, there are drawbacks to those as well.
So mineral or physical blockers basically act like a shield. They sit on the skin and they reflect or scatter UV rays. Those are the ones that they contain zinc oxide, titanium dioxide. They can be a little bit difficult to rub in. They can sometimes leave you looking a little bit like a ghost, right?
Too often, sunscreens don't offer the protection they claim, and consumers don't apply them properly.
So a lot of people are asking me, like, how do I limit the amount of sunscreen that I'm using during the summer? And that's when I tell people you got to think outside the sunscreen box.
People who are concerned about slathering sunscreen from head to toe all day long, which is what doctors recommend, can find peace of mind by covering up. with things like a wide-brimmed hat and new protective clothing like this swim shirt that blocks 98% of the sun's harmful rays.
If you do happen to get too much sun that leads to a burn, Dr. Bo says new CBD products can bring relief.
So cannabis, the cannabis plant, has two main compounds that people are familiar with. There's THC, which gets you high, and CBD, which doesn't. But CBD can actually help to dial down inflammation. It speeds up wound healing, and it also has analgesic properties, so it helps with pain.
As for that aging look that comes with too much sun, Dr. Bo explains how to potentially replace collagen in our skin that the sun breaks down.
They're basically ropes of protein that keep the skin firm and tight and smooth. And there's this very hot new trend of adding a scoop or two of collagen powder into your coffee, into your smoothie, into your oatmeal, showing that if you ingest collagen every single day, it can boost elasticity, hydration in the skin, and even fight wrinkles.
Finally, if you choose a sports drink this summer, make sure it's organic and no more than 2 grams of sugar.
But most sports drinks are loaded with sugar, and sugar causes something called glycation. The sugar molecules bind to the collagen and targets it for destruction. So it's a great way to accelerate the aging process.
Dr. Bo recommends keeping our sugar consumption under 30 grams a day. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Transcribing books behind bars, how some prisoners are working to give back. Next on Faith Nation. And finally tonight, inmates in Oklahoma are doing their part to give back even though they are behind bars.
It's a helpful program where prisoners use their time to transcribe children's books into Braille, bringing the joy of reading to kids who can't see.
Because you're not only working to rehabilitate yourself, give yourself a solid skill set, but you're also helping the young ones. You're helping the blind community.
The inmates say transcribing the kids' books gives them a sense of purpose. They're currently working to earn a Library of Congress Braille certification, a prestigious honor they say would help them enrich the lives of more deserving kids. Tara, I have to say, that's a great program.
That is a great program. Yeah, I wonder how long it takes to learn the Braille.
It would take me eons. I'm a slow learner.
I don't think so.
Well, really great work. Appreciate all that they're doing to help the blind.
Absolutely. And that's going to do it for Faith Nation. Thanks for joining us.
See you right back here tomorrow.